So, ladies and gentlemen, now we will tackle one of the most controversial topics in the world of sustainability, which is carbon. Now, I know that most of you know that, but it's a fact, but there is no problem if I repeat it. But all climate change mitigation efforts that we are doing right now are still not enough to get to the Paris Agreement goals. And there is a proof in the 2022 United Nations report that shows that countries are bending the curve of global greenhouse gas emissions. Now, also regarding the human greenhouse gases emissions, the latest assessment report of IPCC shows that the emissions are growing. They are not decreasing, which is very, very critical. Now, CCUS could be one of the major alternatives to decarbonize all industries, and in particularly hydrogen industry. In the world of Power to X, carbon has its own place, of course, which is the molecule that we can explore to transform green hydrogen produced by electrolyzers to produce green methanols and also synthetic fuels. Now, after what has been said, several questions, of course, are in our minds and on the table about what kind of carbon we have to use. Will it be biogenic, industrial, or others? Also about environmental, technical, economic perspective of carbon capture, use, and storage. So now I will present myself. I am Oussama BAYSSI, and I am research engineer in IRESEN. I work mainly on green hydrogen and its derivatives applications, bioenergy subjects, and agri-technology. And I have the privilege to be the chairman of this session about unlocking the CCUS potential. Of course, I welcome our guest speakers, and I will start to present them right now. Let's start with Professor Abdelghafour ZAABOUT, who coordinates the CCUS research efforts at University Mohammad VI Polytechnic, bringing with him over a decade of deep experience from Norway and the Netherlands in developing, upscaling, and commercialization of CCUS technologies. His activities covered various low-carbon technologies, and Professor Abdelghafour ZAABOUT co-authored nearly 60 peer-reviewed journal papers and several patents. Let's give a huge applause for Mr. ZAABOUT. And the second panelist with us is Mrs. Maryem FARSAOUI, who works as research analyst and business development specialist at Qamar Energies. She holds 5 years of experience in technical and commercial energy advisory, with a special focus on low carbon, hydrogen, and CCUS. Mrs. FARSAOUI advises key public and private stakeholders on growth strategies and business development opportunities. Also, she holds a master's degree in international relations with distinction from the University of Wollongong in Dubai, with a focus on energy security. Let's give a big applause to Mrs. FARSAOUI. And remotely, we have with us Professor Mohammad Abu ZAHRA, who works at the Global CCS Institute as the head of Middle East North Africa region, bringing 80 years of deep experience in international expertise in the carbon capture field. Professor Abu ZAHRA is also an experienced university professor and a current member of the United Nations Council of Engineers for Energy Transition. Previous responsibilities included the management of projects in carbon dioxide capture and CCS integrated systems, consultancy, and chemical engineering. Let's give a big applause to Professor Abu ZAHRA. Now, I will start with you, Professor ZAABOUT. So the floor is yours to share with us your insights.
Thank you, Oussama. Are there any slides that we have to share, right?
Oh, of course. I think since we are giving the floor to you,
That's fine.
maybe yes, maybe you can give us an update about how we can create a sustainability synergy between biogenic carbon and carbon from direct air capture and industry carbon emitted to meet the carbon demand on the PTX sector.
Yeah, thank you, Oussama. I thank everyone for being here despite lunchtime now that I'm sure that everyone is hungry and would like to go to lunch. Yes, so as I mentioned, so I came here so to bring the experience of CCUS, which is, it has picked up in a number of places in the world. Europe, United States, Australia, so we will hear CCUS everywhere, but in Morocco now there are different priorities. The one is the green hydrogen, renewable energy. So a number of efforts now are deployed by the government and all the ecosystem working on the hydrogen now to deploy the hydrogen, the green hydrogen system. CCUS came now to Morocco in the context of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Now this is a new mechanism that is imposing taxes to emissions that CO2 emissions that have been involved in specific product targeting export to Europe. And this one creates a direct incentive basically to for specific affected companies to start to decarbonizing. The issue now is that decarbonization is not necessarily just directly going to renewable energy, just green hydrogen and renewable energy. But there are what we call the hard-to-abate industry that are emitting CO2 that is coming from the product itself. So cement was yesterday and limestone was, it was stationing them. And those are one of the hard-to-abate that are contributing with 7% of emissions worldwide. And CCUS is a big part of the solution basically to capture that CO2. The low-hanging fruit now that those companies that are affected is that to combine CO2 with the green hydrogen and use the incentive that and the hype that is created around this one, so to create basically chemicals. Of course, this is not straightforward because the legislation is a big part of the story as well on how to take it correctly and what is the cost which is involved. So a big part of the story. Yeah, and I will finish with this.
Thank you so much, Professor ZAABOUT. It's a very interesting insight. Now I will move to Mrs. FARSAOUI. Of course, in Qamar Energy, you had the opportunity to work on a lot of CCUS projects. So please, if you can share with us your experience about CCUS in your company, and I will give this with a question regarding the direct air capture technology. Can you give us your personal perspective about this technology? What are the technical and economic limitations? And do you believe that if this technology could be the solution for CCUS future?
Thank you, Oussama. And thank you to IRESEN and all the other organizers for setting up such an excellent platform, first of all. And it's really great to be home. Although it's also sad and heartbroken to see what our beautiful and resilient Morocco had to endure. And thanks to all of you for your support and your solidarity and for showing up. So we're here today to speak about CCUS and its role in driving the energy transition and decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors. And our role in Qamar Energy is to understand how viable CCUS use and costs and technical feasibility of different technologies. We have worked on different projects trying to understand and assess the CO2 storage potential in the MENA region and particularly in GCC region. We've also looked at the capture potential across different industries, so ranging from steel, cement, petrochemicals, and other industries. in terms of our policy work, as far as CCS is concerned, we looked at the challenges and opportunities that exist for the MENA region. And we've also highlighted this in a recent report, a policy paper that we've published in partnership with Qamar and our Stifter, where we highlighted the role of CCUS as an essential decarbonization technology. Well, we're actually, well, this is quite a realistic, but to some it's a pessimistic view. We have a very tight deadline. Our carbon budget is shrinking, and we have around 380 gigaton left of that, and we use 40 gigaton every year. So if my math is right, that's around nine-year deadline. And for that reason, we need to put all the available technologies to use to be able to reach our net zero targets and carbon neutrality goals. And with Qamar Energy, we provide a lot of policy support, regulatory support to government and private sector stakeholders to understand how we could incentivize CCUS deployment and uptake at the policy and the technology level, and to understand the costs. And now, talking about costs and talking about a little bit on the challenges side, CCUS has suffered a lot of challenges in terms of public acceptance or public perception, which in turn affected policy side of it, and also affected the cost of CCUS and cost progress and improvement and reduction. So we know that in terms of capture, the most dilute the source of CO2 is, the most expensive the capture will be. And direct air capture is one of the most dilute sources, so most expensive. But it is indeed a required decarbonization technology that we cannot do without. It allows for the removal of CO2 from the atmosphere and allows to address historical emissions that other decarbonization technologies simply cannot perform. Currently, direct air capture exists in limited capacity due to the cost and due to the nascent policy landscape. But as more carbon pricing is implemented and it's introduced widely at the level needed for direct air capture, say $100 per ton onwards, then we will see more direct air capture projects picking up pace, hopefully at the gigaton level, because that's what will make the most impact going forward. That's what we need. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. For, of course, DAC is one of the most promising technologies regarding carbon capture, but it's still some huge limitation to overcome. Thank you so much, Mr. FARSAOUI. Now we move to Dr. Abu Zahra. The floor is yours to share with us the contribution of CCS Global Institute in CCS economy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Oussama. I hope you can hear me well, and thank you
yes,
for
we do.
the invite. And I hope next time we'll be able to make it in person and be with you in Marrakesh. So if you allow me, I want just to share a couple of slides just to give you an idea about the Global CCS Institute, and also I will touch a little bit on the current status of carbon capture activities in terms of large-scale projects. Mm-hmm. So I'll share my screen. Okay. Yeah, so the Global CCS Institute, for those who are not familiar with the Institute, is an international think tank, non-for-profit, focusing on climate change and more specifically on CCS. We operate across the whole world, so we have 8 offices taking care of different geographical regions. And the most recent office we just opened in the UAE, where we manage the Middle East and Africa. So it's a member-based driven organization. Currently, we have more than 210 members. That includes some governments, energy sector, oil and gas sector, technology suppliers, engineering companies, and so on. And in our expertise as a team, we cover all aspects related to CCUS. So we talk about the whole supply chain, from the technology to the policy, regulations, economics, finance, and so on. So our mission and vision is really to help fill in the gap, accelerate the deployment of CCS globally, and work with policymakers and regulators to make that happen. In terms of the current status of CCS, we produce every year a report. We call it the Global Status, the Global CCS Status Report, and that updated one, 2023, is due to be published by the end of October, prior to COP28 conference. So what we have seen over the last years, if you look at this diagram, there's an substantial increase in the number of CCS larger scale projects announced globally. Currently, as per the first quarter of 2023, we have 37 large scale operational projects globally. And when we talk about large scale, we talk about something more than 500,000 tons CO2 per year, with a fully integrated, dedicated site for either enhanced or recovery or storage. So we were not counting pilot units or small plants in this report. The current operational capacity exceeded 50 million ton per year. If we look at the number of projects at different stages of development, which should become operational by 2028 to 2030, we have in the pipeline more than 300 million tons per year at different stages of development. So that's a very good, promising step we see for CCS. For the last 5 years, we have seen a continuous growth. Now, this growth for CCS is driven by multiple parameters: net zero commitment from governments, from countries, some incentives, like, for example, the IRA in the United States, some tax refund or carbon taxation in Europe and Canada and some Asian countries. So that helped pushing a business case for CCS deployment. The need for low carbon footprint commodities. And as mentioned by Dr. Abdelghafour at the beginning, we have the hard to abate industries. So we need to start having low carbon steel, low carbon cement, low carbon petrochemicals, and that also drive the deployment of CCS. And then we have other parameters of economic drivers. And something also very important related to discussion today is hydrogen, where we talk about the blue hydrogen being directly connected with CCS, and therefore they move hand in hand with the demands and growth for hydrogen. If we look globally at this map, the one at the left shows with these red dots the operational projects. So we have projects scattered all around the world. 3 of these projects are in the MENA region, in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. There was also a project in Algeria and Salah, which was closed a few years ago, and it was more of a pilot unit. So we have these 37 commercial projects operational. If we look at the map on the right, we can see how many other new projects have been added. So only over the last year, 61 in new CCS facilities has been added or announced at different stages of project development. So this is a very good growth. We are very optimistic that things are moving in the right direction. However, we still believe that we are not fast enough in terms of scale and base. If we talk about the gigatons of CO2 being emitted and CCS can contribute in reducing 20% of that, then we need to see commitment of to reach the scale of gigatons of CO2 being captured every year by 2030 if we want to achieve our climate target and stay within the 1.5 degrees. In the Middle East, I mentioned quickly that we have 3 facilities, CCS included in multiple countries' indices. Hydrogen is a main driver for it. And also we have seen increasing interest with COP27 and 28 being in the region. Most important announcement that we have seen recently, Al Jubail Industrial Hub in Saudi Arabia. That's with the capacity 9 million tons by 2027, and it will be increased to 45 million tons per year by 2035. So that will be the largest CCUS industrial hub in the region and one of the largest globally when fully operational. We have seen some commitment from Saudi Aramco, Qatar Energy, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, where they just recently announced their investment decision for a second project with a capacity of 1.5 million tons. So I think I will leave it there. We have seen promising progress, but I think we need to see more and we need to explore additional options for making CCS part of the solution to complement renewables, hydrogen, energy efficiency, and all of the above solutions. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abu Zahra, for this very interesting presentation. You share with us global CCS Institute implication in CCS economy. Now we go to the questions. We'll go back to Professor ZAABOUT. As we know that Morocco published in 2021 its own green hydrogen roadmap with a lot of objectives and a lot of goals. One of them is to export green molecules. And we know that to produce green molecules, we need CO2. So in Morocco, and regarding your opinion, what do you think about the best philosophy that Morocco must follow to establish a sustainable CO2 CCUS economy? Okay.
Thank you, Oussama, for the question. Interesting question, basically. So yes, as I mentioned, is that the a major priority for Morocco is the green hydrogen. But then if you look into the bottleneck for such a program, so you have the storage, transportation, those are the main challenges and bottleneck for the deployment of such ambitious program. If we see now that the CO2 can be an enabler, basically, an enabler for such a program, this is the low-hanging fruits, basically, to take into consideration. The biomethanol or the green methanol, this is the first thing actually to target, especially now that there are programs for the maritime fuel. So this is something to target. E-fuel, jet fuel, all of those ones, actually, they can complement straightforward the hydrogen economy or the hydrogen program, the green hydrogen program from the government. So seeing CO2 as an enabler rather than really a new a program that can be diluting the priorities, I think is the key. And then I finish with this.
Thank you very much, Professor ZAABOUT. Now I go back to Mrs. FARSAOUI. Earlier, Dr. Abu Zahra, in one of its slides, when he showed us the repartition of CCS plants across the world, we saw that in MENA region we don't find a lot of CCS plants. Since you have a big experience in working at MENA region, so you know very well the conditions of MENA region. What do you think if MENA countries need to do to introduce CCS plants? They have to start with research. Is this a joint countries has to be created? What do you think about this?
Thanks, Oussama. And through our research at Qamar Energy and the research that I've done personally, I think that the MENA region is very well positioned to become a champion, a CCS champion. And the GCC region particularly has done a lot of work already. As Dr. Abu Zahra mentioned, there are operational large-scale projects in both the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Qatar with Qatar having the largest capacity, 2.1 million tons of CCS, actually for acid disposal and storage, and not for EUR as most people think that the Middle East is shifting towards EUR or just CCS. So in terms of CCUS plans, there is almost 60 million tons of CCUS planned by 2035. So that's huge, and mainly led by Saudi Arabia, particularly with 44 million tons by 2035. In the UAE, they have a plan of 5 million tons by 2030, and they already just awarded the Habshan gas field to capture and use, I think, the CO2 for storage or either EUR. In terms of where we see other potential in the MENA region, I think Oman could be the next place for carbon capture, but mainly for hydrogen production at the Mabrouk gas field. Now that it has been commissioned by Shell Oman. In other regions, we think that Algeria and Mauritania would be a great place to start. And they have great natural gas resources and advanced infrastructure and networks. So we see a lot of potential that could be unlocked in those countries as well. But in terms of other countries like Egypt, Morocco, and other non-natural gas producing countries, we think that other innovative CCS initiatives could be explored. And Morocco is already a leader in innovative CCS, having announced the marine-based CCS project in the Moroccan Sahara, the largest algae production plant in the world. We don't know the capacity of the plant yet, but it's promising that it won't just remove CO2 from the atmosphere, but also to remove acid from to pre-industrialization levels. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And of course, the option of I call it the third generation of fuels producing via microalgae is one of the very interesting alternative to CO2 sequestration, and at the meantime to produce green sustainable fuels. Thank you, Mrs. FARSAOUI. Now I go back to you, Dr. Abuzara. We know now that CCS Institute works mainly on all kind of carbon sequestration. I mean, natural sequestration, industrial sequestration, and for the industrial sequestration, the main aim is to decarbonize industries, and one of these industries, of course, is hydrogen industry. But now people are confused between green hydrogen versus blue hydrogen. I think that both alternatives should coexist to decarbonize the hydrogen production. Regarding your opinion, what do you think about the coexistence of blue and green hydrogen? How they can coexist?
Yeah, I think, look, when we talk about any source of fuel, our problem is with the emission, not with the production method. So if we produce a blue hydrogen from the natural gas and we manage to remove the carbon dioxide and produce a low intensity of hydrogen, or if we produce hydrogen using renewable energy and electrolyzers, and which is also a low carbon fuel, both should be acceptable. Or if we go for other means of like turquoise hydrogen or whatever hydrogen, So the measure for the fuel should be the carbon intensity. How much carbon emissions are associated per kilogram of hydrogen produced. And then different countries will be having their priorities based on their natural resources. Do they have access of renewable energy to produce green hydrogen, or maybe to have access to cheaper natural gas to produce a cheaper blue hydrogen? So what resources available, how much will be the cost? And then all of that need to be complemented with these international policies and agreements. Will we have restrictions on importing or exporting hydrogen if it's coming with the blue route? Or we will have the international agreement that we move away from colors and become a color blind when it comes to fuel and hydrogen, and just talk about carbon intensity. And the same will be applied for other types of fuel. If we produce fuel for aviation or biofuel, what is the measure? How much carbon is associated with the production of that fuel? So that's the position we support as an institute. And I think we have been hearing similar terminology here in the region, where people say, okay, maybe blue hydrogen can start now, then it will be complemented with a green hydrogen when the prices and the technology with prices goes down and technology become more advanced. And maybe when we phase down most of fossil fuel, blue hydrogen starts reducing as a contributor, and more we see green hydrogen. But the measure again should be carbon intensity simply.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abu Zahra. So to sum up this session, I would like to ask each one of you if you would like to address the audience with the main key messages. What would be the key messages that we have to learn and we have to walk out this room with? Let's start with you, Professor ZAABOUT.
Thank you, Oussama. So with two messages, basically, is that CCUS is part of the decarbonization effort, so we cannot exclude it at all. It's not because we want the CCUS to be in there, but it is part of the solution. There are hard to abate that we cannot decarbonize. And at some stage, we will have to suck as well substantial amount of CO2 from the atmosphere, as Maryem was saying, right? So CCUS is part of the solution. And we should just find the correct context in each country, and context meaning as well what our resources are available. This is one. And second, what is the legislation that can serve best benefits of the country? Thank you.
Thank you, Abdelghafour. So I just want to add to what Dr. Abu Zahra mentioned about blue hydrogen before I add my closing statements. I think that blue hydrogen what I call it now is the new transition fuel. It has a complementary role to green hydrogen. I mean, we have years till green hydrogen is operational in capacities that are needed to decarbonize industry and economy. So if we can use now what is currently the cheapest clean hydrogen version, then that would be very much needed. And there are certain regions in the world where land is limited, for example, in Qatar, and where natural gas resources are the cheapest, and where renewables might not be significant in terms of potential. So there are regions and countries where blue hydrogen will remain a leading hydrogen production pathway. And as Dr. Abu Zahra rightly says, I think we should pursue some sort of colorblind approach into the energy transition and into decarbonizing our system. Now, in terms of my closing statement, I think that, and I think this is something that I forgot to answer in your previous question, what is needed to get CCUS going, and what does the MENA region really have to do to incentivize deployment? And I think the question for that is policy. if we have supportive policy measures, carbon pricing, grants, incentives, and clear business models that could encourage industry to take on low carbon technologies to decarbonize their processes and to address unavoidable process emissions, and also to really make an impact, then policy is key, because policy provides demand. And once you have demand, then everything just follows through so smoothly. So I think that's the key to everything. And one other part of this is collaboration between public and private sector, reporting emissions, aligning the industry's decarbonization goals with the country's decarbonization goals. These are very important considerations moving forward in the CCUS landscape.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For Dr. Abu Zahra, last message.
Yes. Thank you. I would just stress two things quickly. I fully agree with what Maryem and Dr. Abdelghafour mentioned. One important message, that CCS is not optional. And if we go to the IPCC report and the IEA report, CCS, negative emission removal, direct air capture mix are essential and needed if we want to achieve the 1.5 degrees. So we're not talking about optional technology. We're talking about technology that needs to be deployed on a scale. Even the cost, the IPCC report saying if we don't include CCS in our climate change mechanism, the cost of mitigating climate change will be higher. So CCS is not really the most expensive option, but it will be cheaper than many other options we have. Then the last important thing, we need to start seeing the shift into the concepts of circular carbon economy. And there are many initiatives happening globally and in the region where carbon become a commodity and a needed product, not as a waste. So it will have a value, it will help reducing fuel, polymers, we will mitigate the emissions, and then we close the gaps for this circular carbon economy. That couldn't be achieved without what rightly said by Maryem, developing business models, but also developing industrial hubs where we see industry working on carbon emissions reduction by the means of carbon capture or by the means of producing clean fuels like hydrogen or methanol or others. So we need to see more of these integrated approaches deployed globally.
Thank you very much, dear speakers, for your last messages. And of course, like Professor Abdelghafour said, CCUS is one of the solutions, a part of the solution, and all details regarding CCUS must gain more interest and must gain more importance. For example, research and development. For example, policies. Maryem mentioned policies, which is very interesting topic. That public sector should give more support. For example, like roadmaps, like initiatives. We need this to. We have to see this happening, so we can say that yes, CCUS can be a reality as a large scale. So thank you very much, dear speakers, for your insights, for being with us today. It was a big pleasure. And I am deeply sorry for the audience. We are running out of time. If you have any other questions regarding this topic to our speakers, you can share and exchange with them in the lunch break or in this afternoon. So I would like to thank you for your attention. And with this, I close this session. Thank you.